Today we have a truly impressive case that happened in Entre Ríos, near El Palmar, and it would be very interesting to learn about it. What do you think about this story, and have you ever, why not, experienced something similar? I hope you enjoy this story until the end. Before we begin, I want to mention something because many of you still don't know. On Mondays at 6 in the evening, we have a new section with micro stories. I hope you can enjoy them. If you haven't done it yet, look for them. There are already 2 available on the channel, and even though they're short, they're definitely worth checking out, so go look for them right now. If you haven't listened to them yet, down below you have the WhatsApp, as always, where you can send me your story. The number or length of your audio messages doesn't matter. You can add videos, you can add photos, whatever you think is necessary to make your story as complete as possible. If your story is chosen and I have questions, I'll contact you. Friends, let's get started with the story right away. Thanks for watching. My name is Leandro. For some time now, I've wanted to share with everyone something that happened to me and my family. We are from Concordia in the province of Entre Ríos, and even though around here you often hear all kinds of stories, it's very different when something happens to you personally, when you experience that overwhelming feeling of facing something that makes no sense at all. In our case, things were even more confusing, since we might have been victims of something incredible that we still don't understand. It will have its consequences, at least that's what the experts on these topics say. But I would like to know, what do you think after you finish listening to my story? This happened a long time ago when I was 17, but we still remember it like it was yesterday. My old man was still working in the police, and it was a Saturday when it all began. We got a call at home. It was my dad telling us to get ready, because as soon as he got off work, at 7 in the evening he was coming home and we would leave straight for his parents' house. I mean, my grandparents' place, and since it was Saturday, it was pretty common for us to do this, to spend the rest of the weekend with them. An important detail so that everyone listening can understand this story. My grandparents' farm was right in front of the Palmar, a beautiful area but also quite isolated. Of course, the thing was that my old man got home from work, we were already ready, he had some mate with my mom, took a shower, changed clothes, and after 8 p.m. we headed to my grandparents' place. In the car were my dad and my mom, my older sister and me. And you should know that we had made this trip on this same road many times at all hours. And never but never, at least as far as we noticed, had anything happened until that night. We'll never forget this, not just for what happened, but for what we realized hours later. Something truly impressive and quite terrifying, depending on how you look at it, of course.
Once we left, we locked up the whole house. We stopped by a neighbor's place and let him know we were leaving. And well, before leaving, my mother made a phone call to my grandfather and my uncle from the countryside, who also had a landline phone. By 8 or 8:10, we were already leaving the house. There was always the habit of letting them know what time we were leaving. And anyway, we left at 8:10, 8:15, we left the house while they were getting the mate ready. We were already prepared and sitting in the 1980 Ford Falcon. So anyway, we set off on the trip. Well, everything was going normally. We got to El Palmar Park. You have to go a little past El Palmar on Route 14, and to the right, there's a sign that says Verdú. It's another little town with just 4 houses. So you have to turn there, and it's about 5 or 6, maybe a little more kilometers. The rural road to Tierra Negra is very narrow. So anyway, we arrived at Verdú. It was a habit to get out of the Falcon to check how everything was, because the old Nautito was taken care of. But after all, it was an old Nautito, so we checked it a bit. If everything was in order to go in through the dirt road, which was pretty rough actually, because it was all kind of inside the woods, all black dirt, and there was nothing. We made sure everything was okay before we went down that road, right?
Once my old man checked that the whole car was fine, we went down this dirt road in Verdú. And that's where everything happened, where it all began, and where the questions still have no answers to this day. This photo you're seeing is actually from yesterday, because I was visiting my uncle's road. He's the one who lives on this land nowadays. The thing was that during these trips, which lasted about 2 hours, at that part I used to kneel down and look through the rear window. I loved it whenever the moon allowed it, of course, to see the animals that would appear from one side to the other. The vast majority were scared by the car. Keep in mind that nowadays it's a very wild area, so back then it was even wilder. Deer, foxes, capybaras, and the occasional lizard would cross, among other animals, and I particularly loved seeing them. They were free in their own ecosystem. Amazing. And it was precisely while I was watching this that something powerfully caught my attention, and it wasn't an animal, by the way. From the eucalyptus trees on one side, a very, very bright light exploded and shot off to the side, staying suspended over another tree, completely motionless and at a considerable height. Through all of this, I was the only one who had seen it, and I didn't say a single word. I just watched it. The strangest thing was that this light wasn't bright, it didn't dazzle, but you could clearly see its perfectly circular shape, along with a strong yellow color. Noticing it still wasn't moving and clearly visible, I called my sister. She turned and was amazed when she saw it. At first she said maybe it was a plane, but we immediately ruled that out because it was clear that it was hovering over one of the trees and wasn't moving at all. Meanwhile, we were driving away from the area in the car, and my parents weren't paying attention to us since they were arguing about a family matter that isn't relevant here. But this whole atmosphere was shattered when this thing started behaving even more strangely. The light sped incredibly fast from the eucalyptus tree toward us. My sister and I clearly saw how it reached our position and hovered over the car, following along as we drove. And this was so strange, because it didn't illuminate anything at all. If you didn't look up like the two of us were doing, you wouldn't even notice it was there. Another key detail is that it was no longer the sphere of light we had seen before. Its appearance was that of a ring, keeping the same shape, but its interior was completely dark, or rather, without any kind of light or glow. I wouldn't know how to define it. It was about 4 meters in diameter and was at a rather low height, considering that we had previously seen it above one of the eucalyptus trees.
I can't describe the scare I got. At that moment, I froze because I already knew what we were becoming part of, what we were seeing, right? And I end up with my neck twisted, looking like this. Upwards from the Falcon's rear window. I look up and I see the whole thing. Like this from the crescent, let's say, because the other crescent covered the roof and went toward the front of the car.
At that moment, it was my sister who, screaming, told my dad to stop the car because there was a light above us. I was silent, feeling both fear and surprise. I couldn't believe what was happening, but I didn't want to miss it. 1 second. At that moment, my old man stopped the car a bit annoyed, asking what light we were talking about. He didn't understand since they were looking straight ahead or to the sides. When we told him that everything was happening above, it was only then that they leaned over and witnessed something amazing. This circle of light had remained motionless above our car, meaning it stopped when we did. It made no noise at all. Actually, the whole place felt unusually silent. It was strange. For a few seconds, we all stared at it until I opened the door and got out. My old man yelled at me to get back in immediately. But honestly, and I remember it exactly as it happened, as I was kind of hypnotized, I wanted to see in as much detail as possible what was going on. I was scared, of course, but my curiosity was much stronger. Keep in mind that I was 17 years old, so the dangers you perceive at that age are minimal. Seeing I wasn't returning to the car, my folks got out too. My sister, on her part, stayed inside, really scared, looking through the rear window, just like from the beginning, when the three of us were outside. This circle of light finally moved. It shot straight up at a completely incalculable speed because in just a split second it was at who knows what height and it looked about the size of a coin. And then, in the same way, it moved to the right, disappearing on the horizon. We stood outside the car without understanding anything, but at the same time knowing that we had been in front of an unidentified flying object. Without a doubt. A minute later, we got in the car and continued on. There was only a short distance to my grandparents' house, but the story wasn't over. Remember what I said at the beginning. After all this, we found out something that we hadn't noticed until then. Something had happened without us noticing. Something that even today leaves us with a lot of questions and a bit of fear. About half an hour later, we arrived at the ranch. My grandfather came out to open the gate for us. When she learned we had arrived, my grandmother slowly appeared from the back, and something unforgettable happened. My grandfather greeted us and then scolded my dad, his son, telling him that he had already told him to try not to leave so late with that old car, because one day we just wouldn't make it. He was referring to the fact that it could break down at any moment. And I ask you to keep this scene in mind, because it's very important. My old man replied that the car was running perfectly, so he had absolutely nothing to worry about. He added that we arrived on time without checking the clock, guessing it was about 10 p.m. Maybe a few minutes more because we lost some time with that light we came across, but it was only about 2 or 3 minutes, not much more than that. For his part, my grandfather was a bit deaf, so he didn't answer him because he had probably only heard half of all this. But something else happened, and anyway,
My grandmother followed and spoke first. She asked, Mingo, what happened? Did you get stranded on the road? My grandmother said, and then my dad, we didn't understand anything anymore. Well, we greeted each other, I don't know. We got in the car, closed the gate, and drove to the main house, continuing that way home. We loaded my grandparents into the car. Despite its size, we were all squeezed together in the back, talking. How was our trip? Everything was fine. We didn't mention the electricity. Dad just told him work was fine. I don't know. A quick conversation like that until we got to the main house, let's say. And when we got to the house, we went in, put down the bags, some shopping bags, some things. We had already brought the barbecue for Sunday, and we walked past the clock, which was one of those big pendulum clocks, about 2 meters tall, made of black carob wood. A real mess, that clock. And we looked, and it said 2 in the morning, and I swear I got chills. I checked the time and asked my dad, did you see the time? And my dad says to me, no, he says, go check. And he went and looked. 2 in the morning, exactly, 2 in the morning. And Dad grabs his things and heads to the car. Because he had a wristwatch, he looks in the glove compartment, and the car's clock also said 2 in the morning, and it didn't stop. Actually, we weren't satisfied, let's say, with what we were seeing. And Dad grabs it and says, I'm going to turn on the television. He tells my grandma, turn it on. He says, turn it on. You could see 4 channels, but they were only local ones from Villa Elisa de San Jose. Any Uruguayan channels. He turned on a television, one of those old ones made of wood. I remember they still have it with big buttons. He turned on the television. And there was always a Uruguayan channel. It was called Red, Channel 8 from Salto. And it always said Channel 8 from Salto. And next to the time, back then, we were the same, both at 2 in the morning. I mean, we left the house at 8:15 and arrived at 2 in the morning. To my grandfather's house, my aunt's. We should have actually arrived by 10 at night at the latest. So there are 4 hours that we don't know where we were.
Later, after reflecting on the events, we assumed the lost time was linked to the light hovering over our car. But as I said at the beginning, the main question is what happened during those 4 hours? We didn't have any discomfort, pain, mood changes, marks, nothing that at least caught our attention. The car worked properly at all times. This was both incredible and confusing, since we had been lost for 4 hours without knowing what happened or who was involved. Many people follow this channel, some who've had similar experiences, others who know the topics from research. So it will be important to have different points of view, and in this way at least try to better process what happened to us that night, together with my family. Thanks again for joining me. I hope you enjoyed the story and would love to hear your thoughts. If so, why didn't you have a similar experience? I'll say goodbye now, see you in a few days, and now I send a big hug to all of you. Bye bye.